How an obsessed parent can lose your biggest client. I've told this story to all my friends, and I suppose it's time I share it with you. I'm a developer at an agency. Our biggest client at the time was $bank. Apparently, banks in our area have a huge hard-on for raffles, giveaways, and similar marketing tricks to get new accounts opened. Better yet, they are constantly trying to one-up each other, which is great for marketing developer agencies like ours. We present them with an idea for their next big thing. We get 20 young influencers to take photos of themselves with some bank cards and stuff. All of them some small-scale school-age influencers paid a symbolic amount of money. I create an Instagram clone, where people vote for their favorite photo. Each week, a new set of photos opens up and voting starts again. For a total of 8 weeks, everyone who participates in voting enters a raffle, and the influencer with the most votes gets a reward. A top-of-the-line newest smartphone. A lot for a kid their age. So we expected them to go rabid and get as many people as possible to vote for them and possibly open up a bank account to get those extra raffle tickets. I was the sole developer for this job, which meant I had the opportunity to take out the fanciest tools in my toolbox. I was quite proud of the end product. It was done on time, on budget, well-tested, and could handle tons of traffic. Then, the campaign goes live. Voting starts. Traffic exceeds our expectations. Everything on my site is working great. On the second day of the campaign, an 18-year-old $influencer girl gets a massive spike in vote count during a 1-hour period. Immediately after, we get our mail flooded with cheating accusations from another participant's dad. This kid was a 14-year-old boy with a very important dad, somehow involved in politics and completely obsessed with his son's social media career. The very important dad is threatening us in every possible way he can. Negative social media posts, complaining to $bank, boycotting the campaign by getting other participants on board, and somehow threatening legal action. In the same email, he mentions at least 3 times how his son is a huge social media personality, how we should be lucky to even have him in the game, how he didn't even want to participate in such a small-scale event, and just how impossible it is for him to receive fewer votes than $influencer girl, at $agency and $bank marketing department. It's all hands on deck, while the rest is figuring out if there's any exposure and how to deal with very important dad. It's my job to find out if $influencer girl cheated, and to get proof. While the security was done right, auditing and logs were inadequate for this investigation. Server access logs contained IP addresses and such but contained no information that would allow me to connect HTTP requests to actual users and who they voted for. Authentication was done either via Google SSO, Facebook SSO, or SMS code verification. Database records were consistent, so I ended up browsing through the SSO data, trying to spot any sign of multiple dummy Google or Facebook accounts being created just to vote for $influencer girl. The best proof I could come up with was the ratio between different authentication methods. If $influencer girl cheated, the makeup of the accounts that voted for her would be different from the rest of the accounts. In layman's terms, if the app had 40% of users registered via Google, 35% via Facebook, and 25% via SMS, and the accounts that voted for her had the same ratio, or at least, not different enough for any statistical significance, it would 99% prove that she did not cheat. If she cheated, she would have to know the ratio to fake it, although, she could devise an elaborate plan to get the data from another website with a similar target audience, buy hundreds of burner phones, create thousands of Google and FB accounts, all to get that main reward, a phone. A most likely explanation according to very important dad. The people at $bank did not quite understand the mathematics, so my investigation failed to reach any conclusions, so they did the obvious. A lawyer from $bank called $influencer girl to ask her how she got those votes. Turns out she was an animator at a college party, where she picked up the mic and told everyone to vote for her. She then signed a statement that this was true. For the remaining weeks, we were stalling very important dad, telling him that the investigation is in progress and that we cannot give him more information without violating our privacy policy. Meanwhile, He had his friends post conspiracy theories on social media and other weird comments on $bank and $agency pages. In the end, the campaign exceeded all KPIs, some by a factor of 10, and would be considered a massive success, were it not for the accusations of cheating. It put a strain on our relationship with the $bank and we received no future projects like this from them. Eventually, they pulled all their work. IT sees everything. Edit. You can tell which commenters work in call centers and try to avoid work instead of actually doing what they're paid to do like adults. For those concerned, my role actually requires me to document when these things happen and put their manager on the watch list in the ticket. When people report issues that aren't real, admit to damaging property, resist attempts to troubleshoot or refuse to let me do my job, it's because a lot of the casual staff are working from home and not paid for downtime unless it's justified. The company needs to know if and when their money is being spent correctly. I've recently started working in tech support for the first time. 18 years in call centers and offices. Never once tried my hand at tech support. My now employer hired me basically because they wanted to try employing good customer service people they can train to do nerd stuff, as opposed to trying to teach the very smart but frankly quite rude staff to be better at talking to people. Anyway, most users are fine. They can't do basic stuff like clearing cookies and cache, but we have some that know a little too much for their own good, and I had one call me on Friday. Hey, I've got a Citrix freeze so I shut down. I'll need a ticket for the 10 minutes you need to reset the session. Me, alright, got the ticket filled out. Let me check your session and see what's lagging it. You don't need to do that. Just reset it and give me the ticket number. Now users do this because they know that a Citrix reset will take 10 minutes to ensure it's a new session, and they just want 10 minutes off the phones. Some users have daily tickets for this. I know what she's aiming for, and I won't be an accessory to her trying to avoid work. I look at her session, and there's no indication it's frozen. Everything is exactly as it should be, except she shut down her soft phone. I remote into her station and see that she's set her comms to appear offline, and closed her soft phone. She's sending someone a message on Teams to say she's calling IT to lodge a ticket for downtime and will combine it with her break so she gets longer off. Me, everything appears fine to me. No frozen session. No, I told you, it's frozen. No calls are coming in at all. I just need a ticket. Me, well, we need to justify resetting the session, and I'm not seeing any reason why you need to spend the time in downtime. Okay. I don't understand why you're not listening to me. My session froze. I can't move the keyboard or mouse. I can't take calls. You need to reset it. Me, alright, let's test that theory. I take control and make her available on Teams, then open up her soft phone and put her in an available status. A call starts ringing immediately and I even answer it for her. I attach the screenshots of the chat to the ticket and document what happened. Then put her team leader on the CC list for the ticket. I wonder if we'll get an offboarding request for her this week, but it has links. It must be an IT issue. This just happened a few minutes ago. A little background. I currently work for an outsourced IT company, and I have several companies for clients. I'm a basic Tier 1, LVL, 1 analyst for most of my clients. I have one main client that I work for the entire time I'm on queue, and they have loads of software that I don't have access to. Most software is managed by their IT department, but some custom software is managed by various other departments within their company. Here's what happened. Me, Tier 1 desk jockey, IP, impatient caller, T2, the cool Tier 2 analyst, IP. Hi, I'm trying to prepare for a presentation at 9, and I can't access the links from custom software. I need you to help me. I've logged out of it, logged back in, restarted my computer, and nothing is working. Me, okay, I'm not familiar with custom software, but let me take a look and see what articles I have so I can help. Click. Okay, so, custom software is not supported by IT, so here are the people you need to contact because they're the ones in charge of the software. IP, but IT has links. I can't click the link. This is an IT issue if IT has links. Me, yes, while they are links, the software itself is not supported by IT and you still need to get in contact with these other people. Here are their IP There's no one in IT that can help me? No, not really. But what I can do is escalate your ticket to a Tier 2 analyst and they will likely tell you the same thing. Or, they can help me, instead. Cause, it's a link issue, not a custom software issue. Me, clicking away on my really cool mechanical keyboard. Documentation is key here, and I included the KBA number, plus the instructions for whom to contact in case something like this happens. What is taking so long? Why aren't you transferring me? Because I have to type out your ticket first so that when the Tier 2 sees the ticket, he or she can best help you. Oh, okay, that would be wonderful. Thanks. I politely assured her that she would get the issue resolved no thanks to me, and transferred her over to Tier 2. A few minutes later I refreshed her ticket on my screen, and it was closed. I looked at T2's notes. T2 directed her per KB. Who knows something about servers? A super user walks in and asks, who knows something about servers? My colleagues and I all look at each other a little confused. This is the IT department after all. All of us know something about servers. I guess I do? My colleague answers a little hesitantly. The WMS test environment is down. We don't really manage the WMS system. The supplier does. So my colleague logs into VMware, registered sign, to make sure the virtual machine is okay. Well, the server is running. Just drop it, the user says, trying to contain himself. It's not working. Okay, so what is this problem you're experiencing? My colleague asks, slightly annoyed with the tone of voice and total lack of error description. Master data from the ERP system isn't getting updated. Okay, so it isn't actually down. The issue might be with the ERP system or the system in between the two. Please go to our colleagues in the other sub-department right next door. They might be able to help. If they can't, you'll probably have to contact the supplier. My colleague says pleasantly. The user stomps to the other office right next door. I'm not sure what the issue was. Probably a non-issue. It was quickly fixed though. Just describe the issue to us and we'll start diagnosing or send you in the right direction. Also, don't lose your temper over a test system. It shouldn't be critical. That's the point of a test system. Rule 0. It's an average post-holiday weekday afternoon at my work, which means that I am mostly hanging out, answering various questions from our first line of contact, clarifying department rules and updating procedures. I am also checking up on various ancient work orders, gathering dust in our queue, usually for lack of customer or management response, and indiscriminately nuking the ones that I can close due to lack of customer response while auto-repeating a stage in an ongoing Arknights event. Just your usual Tier 3 slow day help desk stuff. An email chime rings. Now, my emails normally don't have audio alerts, except for a select group of very high-ranked people who need urgent Tier 3 level attention to address their pressing problems, such as plugging in a monitor. Among the team, I'm the one on actual emails and calls that afternoon. So I pop it open. It looks like our CEO is trying to join a conference via a specific app, but it's just not working. Oh, and the conference started half an hour ago and they need someone to come up in the next 2 minutes. Call me crazy, but if I have an important conference coming up using a program that I have not tested before, I might call IT out before the conference starts. As I enter CEO's office one walk up the stairs later, I discover that he's got a whole setup going with the smartphone he is using for this clamped in with actual proper hardware, good lighting, the whole thing. Frankly, I am impressed and relieved. This specific conferencing software doesn't play well with our firewall sometimes, but if it goes out over the smartphone Wi-Fi, that's way easier. They have their own, much laxer rules. So can you tell me exactly what is wrong? I ask CEO after exchanging extremely brief pleasantries. He is in a hurry, and so am I since I forgot to restart my Arknights stage before I headed up. So I figured we both have things we'd be doing that don't involve somebody making polite small talk for half an hour. My conference app is not working, he replies, waving at the phone, which does indeed appear blank. The app is up, but other than the meeting name it's just basically blank. You can hear people on the other end, but no matter if I click camera or mic buttons, nothing happens. A suspicion forms in my head. Okay, I say, drop the session and start it again with me looking over your shoulder. Let's go step by step. Everything goes perfectly fine. The app joins a meeting. He types out an amen. Why the ever-loving F is he clicking don't allow to every prompt that comes up? Why are you clicking don't allow to every prompt that comes up? I asked the CEO very diplomatically. Oh, I was told I shouldn't let apps access stuff on my phone. If you don't let this conferencing app access your microphone or camera, it will not be able to transmit anything using your microphone or camera. Oh, is that how it works? Yes, let me reset your permissions in the settings. Here you go, camera and audio feed. You are live. Wow, you are great. I think they've been trying to solve my issue for over a year now with this phone app, and you fixed it in 2 minutes. Haha, no problem. You have a good day, I say as another horrible suspicion forms in my head. Back at my desk, after restarting my Arknight stage, you gotta have priorities. I start digging in the call logging system. Sure enough, here is a work order sent directly to our networking team, bypassing all normal channels. Me, from 14 months ago, highest priority. 4 different texts all going back and forth about how our CEO's phone does not permit video and audio traffic from this conferencing app over our Wi-Fi network. Vendors have been contacted, entire network closets torn apart and put back together, multiple Wi-Fi modems and APs replaced. There have been thousands of dollars and close to 1,000 man-hours put in by people with 6-digit salaries trying to fix this elusive issue. All because none of these senior network engineers ever heard of Rule 0. Don't trust the customer. As a Tier 3 tech, I have the ability to hijack assignments and make sure that everybody involved gets a message when I close the work order. This one was particularly satisfying to close, with a solution description of customer was denying permission to access phone resources to the app. No actual network issue is apparent. See work order. So yeah, this is why the first thing I teach any techies I train is always Rule 0. Don't trust, and also verify. The screen is flashing and making loud noises. Hi, everyone. I was browsing through recommended subs and the moment I saw this, I had to share my experience. I work for an online gambling firm. Rather than having loads of varying departments, we try to resolve as much as possible with one agent to create a better customer experience to save transferring customers. On my first day, I was listening into someone taking the calls. The line would beep, and then the IVR machine would say the query type billing or technical, for example. Not long into listening in, there was the beep and the IVR said technical. The call was connected, and they started the discussion. An elderly lady had called up because her screen was flashing lots of different colors and was making a lot of noise, so she had to turn the sound off. The agent asked what she had been doing, and she is navigating around the account details as the lady is detailing what she sees on her screen. She describes what sounds like a broken monitor, but it's only just happened. At this point it sounded like the lady had put the phone down on a surface for a moment as you could hear her mithering in the background. This is when the agent I'm listening into starts to go white. She taps my hand and on the screen she has highlighted the balance of the customer's account, £297,000. Immediately throws her hand in the air to alert of a big win. We have people crowded around the desk. I feel so pumped at this time. The lady comes back onto the phone and says she went to get her glasses. The agent says to her really calmly, I think I have found the problem, but I need you to turn your sound on. The sound is duly turned on, and the agent hits the speakerphone button on her terminal, and we all hear the sound of party poppers and general celebration sounds. The flashing screen and the sounds were the notification that she had won a progressive jackpot. The agent asks her to sit down, and she calmly says you've won £297,000. I have never been so happy to confirm there is no technical issue. The lady is quiet for several seconds before shouting Albert. Quickly come here, Albert. Albert. Grave accent. At this point a senior had the call to arrange getting the funds sent out, and I carried on listening, and for the day, edit to change gaming to gambling is easily misinterpreted. Leave things plugged in. I got called out 20 minutes before kickoff for the Super Bowl. A local real estate firm was freaking out because the whole network was down. Phones, internet, intranet, everything, even Wi-Fi. We can't do anything. This is costing $1,000 US. Your company better be out here in 10 minutes or we are suing. Great, I get the in ones. I tried some basic troubleshooting over the phone, but the office Karen demanded I come on site. Weekend emergency call. Okay, let's see what's going on. 5 minutes before kickoff, I drove out to the office about 15 minutes away. They take me to the IT closet. I immediately see the problem and try stifle my chuckle. She hears me and starts freaking out again. This better be fixed now. Oh, it is. As I leaned over and plugged their UPS back in, while everything started to buzz and power up, I asked how long that had been unplugged and how long they had been down. Turns out the housekeepers were told if they only needed power for a few minutes they could unplug that and power supply would keep it going. They used the closet for storage also, so housekeeper was there at 6 a.m. forgot to plug the UPS back in. Agents came in at 8. Network went down around 2. Call IT around 415. Back home for halftime. Edit. I did let them know the UPS is only for emergencies and the housekeepers should be using the outlet right outside the door, not the one in the IT closet. We also added a monitor to the UPS to know when it loses power. Edit 2. Wow, this went crazy. Thank you guys, gals, others for all the funny stories and comments. I love it. Keep it up. And thank you to whomever gave the award. That's the second award I have even been given. Edit 3. Wow, I woke up to so much love and so many great stories. Thank you all for looking. Lots of great ideas and stories here. I am glad everyone wants to add their ideas and stories. Some great anecdotes also. Even some urban myths made it in. This is easily my most popular post. And thank you for all the awards. How the tables have turned. Something a little different for you guys. I'm a field service engineer that specializes in medical products. A lot of the stuff I do is high-end eye scanners, lasers and optical testers. But today's tale is about a simple table. Customer books me in to come fix an equipment table that won't go up anymore. These are motorized tables that you can adjust the height of to accommodate different patients. Customer said he wouldn't be there, but others would and they'd show me where the table was. I drive out to the site 40 minutes away and spend another 15 finding parking. I go to the office and guess what? It's closed and no one's around. So I call the customer. He thought someone would be there, but no, it's dead quiet. He asked me to find the building manager as she could let me in. I find her office, but guess what? She's not there either. But there's a mobile number. I call the number. No answer. Bugger. The customer is trying to call around to see if someone can let me in when the building manager calls me back. I explain the situation and she says she can get the cleaner to let me in. But first she needs to talk to the proprietor of the office. Unfortunately, she doesn't know the person I've been talking to and needs to hear the okay from someone else I've never heard of. So a round robin of calls later and the customer has contacted the person the building manager knows who has called the building manager who called the cleaner who let me in. I can finally get to work. I find the table and it's a model I've never seen before. I check it and it is indeed not going up anymore. There's a digital readout showing some sort of message, but it's only 3 letters res, which doesn't mean anything to me. The down button engages the motor, but since it's already at the bottom position it doesn't go anywhere. The up button does nothing. The switches are old and worn, so maybe they are faulty. I pull the switch box apart and run some tests. Continuity is good and shorting the switch directly does nothing. Not the button. So now I have to pull the table apart. The main control unit is under the table, which is all the way down. So I have to lie under the table and unscrew the heavy metal plate that holds all the power points and the circuitry. I put a chair under it so it doesn't drop on my head when I take the last screw out. At least I wasn't that dumb. No, not today anyway. I get the panel off and find an enclosed box that acts as the control board for the table. More screws and a bit of pushing and swearing to get it out. Oddly, there is only one screw on the unit itself. I undo it, but it won't open. Looks like it's a sealed unit. Bugger again. Now what? I decided to go back and look at the control panel. As I'm looking, I see a post-it note stuck to the table. If table goes into reset mode, res, hold the down button until it clears. I hold the down button. I count to 5. The message disappears and the display is now showing the table height. I try the up button. Table goes up. Table goes down. Table goes up. Table goes down. I shake my head. 20 minutes later I have the table all back together and all the machinery plugged back in. I call the customer and tell them it's fixed. We all know RTFM and RTFS, so I guess now RTFP should also apply when there's a post-it note telling you exactly what to do. Well, You shouldn't have fired the IT guy then. In a past life I worked for an MSP and we got a new client. The IT guy was at his wit's end. He had been there for 5 years, and in the last 3 has had not had a day away from work. The straw that broke the camel's back was returning from the beach to his hotel room to find several messages from reception. They were work calls asking about mundane stuff. So, he hired us to help out, so he could actually get back on track with his workload and occasionally, actually have a holiday. It turns out his employers were very tight-fisted, and within 2 weeks of hiring us, their boss, a man who hears only what he wants to hear and ours, a salesman who thinks everything is a sales opportunity. It seems I were going to do in half a day a week what this person had been doing full-time. Now, as I said, my boss was a salesman. Their boss heard what he wanted. I have always pictured the conversation they must have had as a montage moment with 3 cells on a TV screen. One with the inner monologue of my boss on the left, one with the inner monologue of theirs on the right, and the real-life events going on in the middle. Somehow my boss thought he had negotiated to sell them a new phone system. I only do IT, not telephony, and their boss thought that we would take over maintenance of their ancient Toshiba analog system. Many other similar misunderstandings between them took place that day. Their old IT guy was the absolute epitome of anything with a plug on it is my department. That is not how my company worked. The MSP I worked for had some characters, and some jaded employees who didn't care. This client would quickly make me transform to the latter. The client mailed across their works list, and the girl who scheduled calls diligently copied and pasted the contents of the email into the works order, replied that's all fine to the client. She had only been doing this job for 15 years. She had still yet to learn to review client requests. I arrived for my first half day at the client. My site contact came up and we were going to prioritize the list I was handed. Me, error, item 2, contact, oh yes, can we do that one first? Me, change the strip light in your office as the bulb is flickering. Contact, yes, it's so annoying. Me, no, I only do information technology, computers, servers, network hardware, broadband etc. I don't change light bulbs. Contact, oh, but the last IT guy did all of that. It was the start of the long half day. Other items included, look at the AC unit that was making noises, reprogram 3 extensions on the Toshiba phone system, swap the first and second floor copiers between floors. Of a list that was 14 items long, only 3 were actual IT issues. This client soon became a regular contributor of some of the most head-in-hands cases we had ever received. Oh, but the last IT guy did all of that. Became their closing statement, with such greats as a panicked call at 1758 help. Our door security system won't let us lock the front door. It turns out their IT guy did the door entry system for the whole building as a side hustle when they moved in. They had money but didn't like spending it. They had a team of accountants in Singapore because they were cheap, but the accountants kept resigning because they couldn't do the work as the accounts system was based in England and they were connecting over remote desktop to the UK office running on an 8 millibar down 1 millibar up ADSL line. I remember the meeting, it was great. CB equals client boss, me equals me, IT equals internal IT guy, CB. Another accountant resigned and complained the systems are too slow. IT, like I said, we have a slow broadband line. We need a fast low latency line, not a home user speed one. CB, me, what do you think? Me, I agree, your line is far too slow. It would be unworkably slow, making that job impossible. You need a lease line. CB, too expensive. As I said, my boss was a salesman, so he sold them. Another 8 millibars DSL. I had to sit the bosses down and draw a picture to tell both bosses why the new line and all the load balancer settings in the world would not fix this. Here is a sinking ship. You need a big pump capable of shifting hundreds of gallons a minute to get the water out. You currently have a bucket. Instead of selling them a big pump, you sold them another bucket. One of the final nails in the coffin was the logs from their door entry system. There was a corner office with a DB9 wall port. which had a serial cable going to a workstation with never turn off or move, door entry database computer written all over it. We got the support call that the ops lady couldn't get the door entry logs. The database connects, but there were no logs for the last month. I went there. The computer was gone. They had a new starter. I recognized the chassis under his desk. Again, I had to give them a puppet show for your entry logs to be recorded. This computer had to be in that corner office with that big long cable plugged into the back. That big long cable is resting on the floor. Without it connected, this computer doesn't get the new logs. What about the last month's logs? How do we get them back? You don't. It was a real-time serial connection from the door system. Why did this computer get moved? The boss thought it was doing nothing and moved it himself. He didn't want to buy a new one. I was very happy to say we parted ways shortly after that. We told them they required an on-site guy permanently. They hired the cheapest person they could find. For 3 weeks he was logging tickets daily asking about how things worked. We could have gotten him up to speed if we had 6 months. But after 3 weeks they canceled their support contract. The last I saw of their new hire was him leaving the local supermarket with a job application form. License code Russian roulette. Many years ago, back before I went into business for myself as an IT consultant, I worked at an MSP help desk doing some contract work while I was between jobs. It was a short-term contract of 3 months with a pretty high hourly rate considering low technical level of the job. The recruiter had trouble filling the position and was delighted when I accepted. The online research I performed suggested it would be an okay place to work for just a few months and, heck, I needed to money. So off I went for my first day. Did you just move in? I showed up at the address and was astonished to see an office full of boxes, clutter, and half-set-up workstations. It looked like the company had performed a quick relocation over the weekend and was still unpacking halfway through Monday morning. After waiting for about 15 minutes at reception, staffed by a temp, never a good sign. The manager finally greeted me. IT guy, my name is IT guy, and recruiter, place me here. I'm sure you got all the paperwork. Happy to be joining the team. Manager, oh yeah, that all came over the weekend, but I was so busy I almost forgot. As you can see, things are sort of hectic around here. Let me show you to your workstation. We are swamped this morning. This place was more disorganized than a failed state. Office furniture was partially assembled, wires strewn all over the place, people running around chaotically, and no organization readily apparent at all. Finally, after navigating the maze of clutter, we get to my workstation, which is a card table, folding chair, laptop, and IP phone. You have one client. The manager gave me a rundown of their system and login credentials. The briefing took about 10 minutes. I was VIP support for one of their preferred clients and my sole job was to take calls from their staff. My instructions were clear. Tickets will be routed to me from this one customer and I am to resolve them as quickly as possible. If anything needs to be escalated, I have one point of contact, which I found out later was the owner of the company. That is it. I am to do nothing else than support this one customer. The manager gave me strict instructions not to help out anyone else and to stay close to my area. I was to only respond to tickets for the customer, period. If I left my desk, I was to notify my point of contact and I should keep that to a minimum. Otherwise, I could do whatever in my downtime. Listen to music, read a book, browse the internet. The manager made it abundantly clear he could care less as long as I was on top of any call from this client. I have to run. Your point of contact should be reaching out to you sometime this morning. If you have any questions, just call that number, the manager said while glancing at his watch. The phone rings. To say I was a little perplexed by the situation would have been a mild understatement. This was an odd setup, but not unheard of in the MSP business. Figuring it would all make sense in a while, I settled in and took a tour around the environment. My workstation was locked down, just an internet browser, some documentation for the client on the desktop, remote administration software, and a few other odds and ends. Ticketing system interface only showed me any open ones for the client I was assigned, and the documentation of their systems was bare bones. About an hour in, the phone rang, so I picked it up. Not knowing what to say, I just made something up on the fly. IT guy, hello, this is the help desk for company. My name is IT Guy. How can I help you? On the other end was a billowing voice that sounded like he was screaming into a speakerphone. For the sake of the story, we will call him Ed. Ed, hey IT Guy. This is Point of Contact. I am the owner of the company. Glad to have you on board. Let's break down what your next 3 months will look like. I was surprised that my sole point of contact for this client was the owner of a rather large MSP. That was also unusual, and it was about to get a little stranger. Ed ran down the client details. It was a small boutique shop that did a lot of data analysis. They paid big bucks to keep their users up and running. Support issues were mostly routine, password resets, lockouts, VPN issues, and software installs. It was, in fact, one application in particular that would give me the most tickets. Ed. So the client uses this one proprietary program that is really advanced. It is their primary analysis tool, but the problem is that it is unstable, crashes all the time, throws out false errors, does weird things like that. We have tried to work with the developer to address the various issues, but for whatever reason we can't get them resolved. So, the main troubleshooting you will be doing is fixing this application. Ed then ran down the main techniques that would be used. The first step was a simple uninstall. Run a custom script to clean up junk files, and then reinstall. I was to perform this action twice, and if it still didn't work, direct the client to overnight early delivery, their workstation, which would then get a new image and sent back out the same day. Ed, the most important thing about the whole troubleshooting process for that application is the license codes. They are on a Word doc on your desktop. Then he stressed, IT is extremely important that any time you input one of those license codes that you copy and paste IT to the bottom of the list. Always use the top code, and once you have used IT, put IT on the bottom. Just cycle through those codes until one works, only inputting IT once time even if IT fails. Do you understand? IT Guy. Yeah, sure. Sounds easy enough. So is this all you want me to do? Ed. Yes, that is it. Your job is to only do what I have told you. Fill in your downtime doing whatever. Just stay by your desk if at all possible. And if you have any questions, call me directly at this number. No one else there will be able to answer your questions, so just call this number if you need anything. Got it. IT Guy. Yup. Sounds easy enough. With that, I got off the phone, which left me sitting all alone at my card table desk, among half unpacked boxes in an empty area of the huge office. Okay. This is weird. I thought to myself, my first ticket. The first day flew by and not a single call or ticket. It was rather boring seeing that I was unprepared for all the free time. So the next day I brought in a few books and my personal laptop, wondering if most of my days would be so uneventful. About an hour in, the phone rang. The caller was angry. Caller, my effing par's computer locked up again. This always happens. IT Guy. Hello there. Let's take a step back and see what I can do to help. Caller. Oh great. A new guy here. I can tell you what you need to do. Reinstall this stupid program. This happens, I swear, every week or two, and always when I have a deadline coming. I got on a remote desktop session and quickly was able to diagnose the issue was the proprietary program Ed had told me about. The error said something about invalid license key and a few other random codes. IT Guy, as you identified, I am new at this, but according to my documentation I need to reinstall this program to get it to work. This is my first time doing this procedure, so I don't know how long it will take me to go through the troubleshooting guide. If you hang with me, we will get through this. Caller, I can tell you it will take about an hour because this happens like once a week. Let's just get this done. I need to finish this report by 5 p.m. Over the next hour I walked through the step-by-step guide that was on my workstation desktop. Mostly just a lot of clicking and cleaning up. Ran the custom script Ed told me about and then reinstalled the application package. Most of the time was waiting, but the caller wasn't interested in small talk. Finally got to the last step, which was to enter the license code. Remembering the specific steps Ed imparted to me, I tried to first code. The program attempted to register for a few minutes, then kicked back an error saying license code in use. Thinking that was odd, I asked the caller if he had seen that before. Oh yeah, Happens all the time. Something to do with a bad developer key, I am told. He said. So I tried the next code after copying the failed code to the bottom of the list. This time it worked. Great, I think that is it. I thought to myself, IT guy, okay, try to open up the application and let me know if everything seems to be working. Caller, after clicking around a lot, yup, seems to be up and running. Thanks IT guy. I will probably be talking to you in a week or two with the same issue though, so until then. I opened up a ticket, documented it according to the guide, and then closed it out. If this is the extent of the work I have for the next 3 months, this is going to be easy street, I said to myself. The next few weeks, the caller was correct, and over the next few weeks my ticket log was mostly just the same issue with the same fix. About 3 a day, and 1 out of 4 times I would have to direct the user to send in their workstation for a full wipe. It was around the 2-week mark that I started to notice a pattern. I would fix a workstation and then a few hours later I would get a call from the next person with the same issue. Then I noticed that I could make a list of the users that would call in, and it was a regular rotation. After I fixed their problem and put them on the bottom of the list they would cycle through. I could even use that list to predict who would be my next call. Of course, I was naturally curious to the entire situation, but the one time I asked Ed for some clarification on one of his many check-in calls, he blew up at me, told me that my job was to fix the error using the procedure I was given, and that was it. And if anyone asked about anything, I was to give them this number to call. End of story. Understood, is how the conversation ended. I needed a job, the pay was good, the work was easy, so that was the last time I asked any questions until a few weeks later. And I had my suspicions as to what was going on, but even if I was right, it didn't matter. One day after work, it was about a month into my contract, and I was walking out of the office. One of the techs got my attention in the parking lot to tell me some guys were going to happy hour. Now my work area was in an empty part of the office, and because I wasn't supposed to leave my desk, I had interacted very little with the others who worked there. And when I did, it was mostly pleasantries. They knew I was a contractor and would be gone soon enough, leaving little interest in getting to know me. But today was different, and this outgoing guy told me to come along and grab a beer with him and the team, only having an empty house waiting for me. I went along. The conversation was light until the alcohol started flowing. These guys weren't in it just for happy hour. They were clearly hunkered down for the night, like this was an almost daily ritual. And around hour 2 is when the lips started to get loose. Drunk tech, so you are the guy who has the client. Making air quotes when he said client. IT guy, yeah, I guess that is what you mean. It is just one company and all I do is work supporting them. Drunk tech. Oh yeah, that is the client we are never supposed to talk about, and if they ever call the main number, always just send it to the owner. IT guy, sounds like my assignment. Guess it must be a big money account to get such attention. I asked, trying to pry. Drunk tech, oh, it is something. Ed, the owner, thinks we have no clue what he is up to, but the last guy figured it out. IT guy, figured what out? The work is a little odd to say the least. Drunk tech, yeah, it is going to bite Ed in the behind one of these days, but let me fill you in. The scheme. Turns out my suspicions were right. The proprietary software used by the company was expensive, with a license costing upwards of $100,000 per year per user. The company had about 20 analysts using it on a regular basis, and through some happenstance figured out that they could be running more than the number of paid licenses usually for a few days before the program called home and registered the duplicate code and used then locking the application up. It didn't take long for the president of that company to figure it was cheaper to contract with an MSP to play Russian roulette with the license codes instead of just buying one for each user. All the MSP had to do was keep cycling through the license codes by constantly reinstalling the program, using scripts to clear all the log registry files, and as a backstop measure just doing a complete wipe in the event the scripts didn't catch an updated fraud prevention measure. Ed, the owner, was being handsomely paid to keep this scheme going, enough so that he could hire rotating techs that were paid enough to not ask questions and cycled out frequently enough that they would not care. What surprised me is that the central registration server didn't spit out red alerts when the same codes were being used over and over again, despite the fact that it would disable access to the application if a duplicate appeared. Guess not every fraud prevention system is foolproof. Or maybe something in the scheme addressed this point. If so, I never uncovered it. The end. I finished up my 3-month contract and happily left for another gig that was more engaging. It was partially all the downtime I had while doing this job, though, that led me to consulting work, which would later turn into my own business, and it is what I remember most about this job. What happened to Ed, the MSP, and the revolving license code scheme? I have no idea, other than about a year later the same recruiter called me up to ask if I was interested in the position again. I respectfully declined. TLDR, took a short-term contract at an MSP doing help desk work. Ended up being involved as an unintentional conspirator in a minor software piracy scheme where the MSP worked with another company to avoid purchasing the number of licenses for those who were actually using the software, probably saving that company hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process. Handover of work, total disaster. So I'm working at the moment in this big corpo, and they decided some time ago to switch to outsource support model. My contract ends end of February, and for last 12 months no one contacted me about anything. Literally no contact, no questions, nothing. I was only receiving requests for setting up access for those people. In theory, from 4th of January they took over all support. I'm still at the company only because of few unfinished projects that got delayed by global teams. And since Monday the shit is hitting fan almost constantly. People in the company are not fully aware of me being phased out, so they contact me with any problems specific to their applications. I refer them to the outsource people, and every single time within 5 to 10 minutes after I refer people to them, they contact me asking for help because they have no clue. One of the managers decided to create a meeting to transfer knowledge. That meeting just finished. It was supposed to be 30 minutes call. It lasted for over 90 minutes, and I'm shocked by the lack of knowledge of those guys. I don't want to go into too much detail, but one part of my job is, or rather was, officially it's their job now, to set up backups on the workstations. It's one of the simpler tasks. Some of the questions I got during that call: why do we need to do backups? Why do we need to monitor backups? Why do we need to install Agent on the computers and configure it? What happens when we restore the files? What happens with the PC that we restore image to? Does the data that was on it stay there? I explained why the automatic restore option doesn't work and why we need to use a specific port and specific method to restore images, and 10 minutes after the call was finished I got questions from different people asking why do we have to do it? The problem is that in next few weeks there will be plenty of new workstations installed throughout the office and labs. Since I'm no longer officially part of the support team, I won't be getting any access to them. Backup is only a fraction of what needs to be done. I know for a fact that those guys have no clue how to even launch a command prompt as local administrator on a machine. Domain accounts are prohibited from being local admins by global policy. So, yeah, I expect a total disaster. Wondering what I shall do in that situation, because I know they will be bothering me all day long. Would you guys do anything to help them? My days in the company are soon to be over. I have a very good relations with my managers on site. I know they're pissed by the decision from corporate about to outsource support. So in theory I should just tell everyone to F off and finish my projects and say goodbye. Example from just a minute ago. One guy was asking again why the automated process for restoring images wouldn't work. So I explained it was because of NAC implemented on the network, and he replied with this: Network Access Control, NAC, is an approach to computer security that attempts to unify endpoint security technology. Like what, Jeff? Why are you copy-paste Wikipedia to me? Is that a question or what? I'm really sorry for all the people working here, as I know that the disaster is coming. And at the same time I'm wondering what the corporate was thinking when they decided to switch from local support's model to outsource. Well, I know what they were thinking: money. The problem is the outsource people live literally 6k miles away and have no effing clue about anything. And I think they only start to realize that this is serious contract, not sitting on the ass and digging up the nose. Death of a disruptor. Once upon I used to be an electrician on an aircraft carrier. Now, I do maintenance for an electronics manufacturer. Weirdly enough, users are users, no matter what the field. Imagine, if you will, your nemesis. I know you have one. That server rack with power supply troubles. That database that has some deep-seated issue with mathing correctly. That one printer that just will not stay addressed. The one that makes you hesitate to pick up a call from the department, because you know your afternoon is effed if you do. That one piece of equipment or code you would love to launch into the sun. My nemesis was the disruptor, an angry oversized oven, with a custom sheet metal airflow monstrosity in its guts. Said sheet metal monstrosity meant that any work done on this thing was tripled if I was lucky. Work that would take me an hour on a different, reasonable chamber would take me 6 on this bastard. I have spent actual days of my life completely bodily inside this thing, and of course, it was a single point of failure kind of equipment, so any time it went down was an emergency. I spent so much time in it. Disruptor Whisperer was on my performance eval. The process suit is embedded in my pores like a tattoo from hell. I have burn scars from the time a relay in the back blew up. F this thing, is what I'm saying. And then, shining relief. Someone realized that this thing was awful, and shelled out the cash to replace it. Still a single point failure, but the new chamber is designed to do what the old one was modified to do. So no sheet metal disaster, no soot traps, no shredded stripped out holes where single-use screws were used again and again. It's beautiful, it's maintenance friendly, I love it. The old bitch is getting its useful parts stripped and is currently slated for the dumpster. First thing out, though, is the sheet metal thingamabob. Still remember your nemesis. TFTs? Imagine taking your nemesis in hand, giving it a good shake, taking it out to the back lot, and smashing it to a pancake with a sledgehammer. Imagine picking up the busted scrap and yeeting it into a dumpster, so thoroughly wrecked that no one can ever make an argument for putting it back into service. Imagine the relief of watching it get smashed again by the compactor. Imagine the high five from your boss, who is well aware of your seething hatred. I wish for every single one of you to experience the euphoria I did today, of the downfall of your nemesis. Effort did give me one last blood blister on its way out. Wi-Fi nonsense part 2. The Wi-Fi is frozen. Tell us from tech support. Reddit.com. This got pretty popular, so why not another story? Same company, same issue. Due to terrible design choices in the failed attempt to save money, this everything selling store needs Wi-Fi in its walk-in fridges and freezers. I was sent on a different work order to figure out why they didn't have Wi-Fi in one of them. Different store, same problem. Well, in this case the Wi-Fi making box, wireless access point, WAP, or AP, was actually present, and functional. They didn't tell me which freezer was screwy, but it didn't take long to figure out. This store actually followed my installation guidelines. The WAPs were mounted on top of the freezers, with a hole leading inside where an antenna was mounted on the ceiling. Perfection. Except the one that had no antenna. I rightly assumed this was the problem child. Pop a ladder on the side, climb into the ceiling. Sure enough, WAP humming away happy as can be. No antenna, no hole. Wi-Fi's not gonna reach through a foot of insulation sandwiched between metal walls. Might as well be a bunker. I climbed down, inform the manager the installation was never completed properly, and leave very specific instructions. You must have an antenna mounted inside the freezer. There is to be a hole drilled in the ceiling of the freezer, through which the antenna is to be connected to the WAP. I couldn't do it, because I, the humble repairman, was paid far much more than a grunt laborer installation tech, and God forbid they let someone who knows what they're doing install things. It'd bankrupt this poor multinational franchise. A week later I get a ticket from the same store for the same issue, but the work order is updated. Store states antenna was installed but issue was not resolved. I think, time for proper troubleshooting then. I arrive, step into the freezer, can't find the damn antenna, grab a ladder, pop the ceiling tile, climb up top. Sure enough, they mounted the antenna all right. They mounted it to the steel support holding the roof up, even further away from the freezer's top, a good 4 feet above it. The manager is furious when I try to ask why my instructions weren't followed. It's a good antenna, isn't it? Can't we just turn the power up and get signal through it? I thought about how to answer this question in a way he could understand. After a moment, I nodded, and said, "Will you please step into the freezer with me?" I had him curious now. Once inside, I turned off the light, Pitch black. Dark, isn't it? I said. He agreed. Then I asked, in the same outraged tone, shouldn't the sun be bright and powerful enough to shine through this? How can it be dark if the sun is so powerful? Then I turned on the switch, and in more than one way the manager was enlightened. Eventually I had to come back on a third trip. They'd gotten it all wired up. Still no Wi-Fi. Antenna cables weren't screwed in. Pretty quick turnaround. Happy customer. Just think how much money they saved taking all those shortcuts and cutting all those corners. Same moral as last time. Do it right, or do it twice. Thank you for watching. Daily uploads.